Scotland podcast. Industry updates and best practice to promote, support, develop and protect the Scottish red meat sector.
Hello and thank you for downloading this podcast from Quality Meat Scotland. I'm Mark Stephen. It's fair to say that if you want a career with guaranteed prospects and a fixed and certain future, then farming's probably not for you. Just to make a go of farming, you have to be umpteen things. You've got to be resilient, adaptable, open to change, constantly willing to learn. But farming is a business, like any other, and occasionally costs can be cut and things can be done better. It's a business where you can improve not just your bottom line, but potentially your impact on the environment too. This week I'm joined by John Evans, QMS Knowledge Transfer Specialist. John's from a mixed farm in Fife and returned to the family farm after studying engineering at university. From 2013 to 16, he was on the management committee for the Fife Monitor Farm and joined the benchmarking group, which is still going today 6 years later. The Monitor Farm and QMS grazing groups have really influenced his business significantly. And we're also joined by Andrew Marchant, who until recently was the Nithsdale Monitor Farmer. Now, for obvious reasons, we're doing this from home. I'll just check everybody's still there and it's all still working. John, are you there?
Yes.
Good stuff. Okay, and how about you, Andrew?
Yes, yep, can hear you loud and clear.
Good stuff. Excellent. Andrew, for a start, tell me about your farm. Where is it? How big is it? What have you got?
We're based down in southwest Scotland, near Thornhill in Dumfriesshire. We're a sort of upland grazing farm, and we've got around 300 hectares, which we rent from the Duke of Buccleuch.
Am I right in thinking that both you and your wife were kind of late entrants to this?
Yes, we were new entrants in 2012. Neither my wife or I were from a farming background. I was brought up in a rural area and sort of got the farming bug at a fairly young age. And after getting a degree in agriculture, ended up as a farm manager and always had I had a real hankering to start our own business and go it alone. And we were lucky enough in 2012 to take on the tenancy of Chlonhie.
You describe being part of the Monitor Farm project as, and I'm quoting directly here, a fantastic opportunity. Explain that. In what way?
The Monitor Farm project came at a very good time for us. It was quite opportune, the timing, really. We were 5 years into establishing and developing our business. We'd spent 5 years head down, arse up, doing whatever we could to try and grow a business. From that point of view, we were quite pleased. We had managed to build up our livestock numbers and increase the area we were farming, and it got the business in a position where we felt it was viable to stand alone, and I was able to work full time at home. However, we didn't feel our technical performance was very good, because it wasn't. It was fairly average, and really we were at a point where we needed to have a real in-depth look at our business, analyse what we were doing, and get a real clear plan for how we were going to move forward. So that was quite a good time to become a monitor farmer and do that.
So what sort of aspects of your business were you looking at?
Really, the technical performance of the livestock enterprises wasn't good enough, and the grassland wasn't productive enough. We'd started from scratch, which is pretty tricky, and we'd invested all the money we had in growing our livestock numbers, and we'd started tentatively putting a bit of investment into improving the grassland and the soil on the farm, but we had a long way to go with that, and the quality of the livestock wasn't where we wanted to be. Although we had a low cost base, we weren't getting enough output to make some serious profits and allow us to reinvest in other things.
How digitised, how technologically advanced is your business nowadays?
I would say it's moved on considerably throughout the Monitor Farm programme. We had very little before that. We have got piles of Excel spreadsheets and folders on my laptop where I just did everything that way, and loads of bits of paper with scribbles on. So it wasn't very good, but we have now invested in farm management software, and we've digitally mapped a lot of the soils on the farm and the best land, which allows us to variable rate spread lime and fertiliser. And we've also invested in sheep handling equipment, which allows us to monitor growth rates and select breeding stock on on weight gains and other aspects such as that. So we have moved on a lot over the past 3 years.
And those advances, did they spring directly from the Monitor Farm project?
I think a lot of the things that we've done over the Monitor Farm project might have been things that we would have got to eventually, but it's really accelerated our progress, I think. We'd always been pretty driven and very committed to what we were doing, but I think it just gave us it refreshed that and really let us kick on again. We've got so much more than that out of it, though. I mean, I think there's a big social element which is shouldn't be understated. A lot of people, it's quite an isolated business now. There's a lot of people working on their own, so there's been a huge amount of social benefits and camaraderie, I suppose, through people coming together in the group. And I would recommend to anyone that's got a chance to get involved in a discussion group or a benchmarking group to go for it, because being involved with like-minded people is a fantastic way of pushing your business forward, and it's great to have a group of like-minded individuals that you can bounce ideas off and learn from each other with.
It's quite a leap of faith, though, isn't it? It involves quite a lot of trust, and presumably you didn't know everybody that was going to be a member of that group for a start, and you're inviting them onto your business in your home and saying, what do you think?
It wasn't easy, I suppose. We had to, but I decided from the start, if we were going to get the most out of being monitor farmers, we had to be very open and transparent with everybody about what we were doing, which at times is difficult. We had some tough years during the programme. 2018 we were quite badly hit with weather, with beasts from the east, and then following a drought, and our figures were pretty grim. And standing up in front of a hall full of people and showing them these figures, you had to be pretty thick-skinned to take it. But I think that's only made us stronger, and I think that helped a real bond develop between the core of the group, and that leads into other people starting to share what they're doing, and all of a sudden you get a snowball effect, and you get a group of people that trust each other and are quite willing to be open and honest, and that's the way you really start to move your business forward, when you really have an understanding of where you are and you're honest with yourself.
It must be quite a nice point, though, when you, like a tipping point, where you go from being the person who is receiving that help, receiving that advice, to actually being able to pass it on to somebody else. Yeah,
it's great. It's great. And I think one of the things we're most proud of with the Monitor Farm programme here is there has been a lot of people have adopted and tried out some of the ideas that we've had a go at here, and we've demonstrated, I suppose. So, you would like to hope that we've left a bit of a legacy in the local area and people will develop on from that.
John Evans, what was your involvement with the QMS groups before you joined the organisation?
I think my first involvement was a monitor farm, QMS Monitor Farm at Hill Tarvet in Cooper, and that would be back maybe 2010, something like that. And that's where I was first introduced to grassland management and these kind of things. And then it moved into Michael Blanch's QMS grazing groups later, maybe 2015, and then into better grazing, which ran up until this spring.
These groups, I mean, because essentially it's not just scientific experts or whatever, or advisors, it is fellow farmers. Why do you think they work?
It's an opportunity to learn from other farmers that are trying different things. On farm, you can't try everything at once each year. So effectively, if different people try different things, you then travel around these different farms and learn from them. Not that many things that people try are necessarily successful. So if everyone tries something, then someone usually hits on something that works. And that's the key thing about peer-to-peer learning.
Everybody else jumps on the bandwagon.
Yeah, once they find something that works, everyone does it.
Now, less than a week ago, QMS launched their new Sustainable Red Meat Action Groups. What are they? How will they work?
They're a natural progression to better grazing and the Monitor Farm project. They're a peer-to-peer farmer discussion group based around benchmarking farm performance, measuring carbon credentials using carbon auditing, and then from that, looking into on-farm performance and improvements that can be made. The groups will be based in Orkney and Shetland, north of Scotland, the northeast, the northwest, central, Lothians and Borders, and the southwest of Scotland. And that will depend on the interest from farmers and where they're all based. The groups will be driven by the results of the benchmarking and the carbon audits, but the main focus will be understanding the link between carbon, meat production and profit.
And why the change in emphasis? Sustainable red meat.
Sustainable has been the buzzword for a while, and everyone's talking about it, but consumers are now more and more focused on knowing where their food has come from and how it's produced, and they want to know that their meat is produced in a sustainable way. We as an organisation and as farmers need to find out what sustainable red meat production actually looks like in Scotland in 2020.
And how will these new groups differ from the old Monitor farms?
They're very different in the way that the Monitor farm was focused on one farmer with a management group and then a community group, whereas these are focused on just 7 smaller groups with 12 to 15 members. They're aimed at the community groups from the Monitor farms and the better grazing participants. So people that were on the fringes of say, the Monitor farm project and are now looking to develop their business in a way that Andrew has.
Andrew, as John said there, consumers are increasingly concerned about not just where their food comes from, but about farming's impact on the environment. Were you able to reduce your carbon footprint in Chlonhie?
Yeah, we were. We measured, the carbon footprint was measured when we started the programme and then 3 years later. And we managed to make some quite considerable reductions, which was really pleasing. And the big thing for me about the carbon audits is that it really highlighted the fact that our goals and our sort of strategy for developing our business really went hand in hand with lowering our carbon footprint, which was a really pleasant surprise for us. You know, we're looking to increase our output per hectare, whilst at the same time reducing our inputs and our reliance on fertilisers and feeding, bought-in feeding. We're trying to grow more and utilise more grass and forage, and really improve our genetics so that, you know, we've got the right type of stock that so that we can get the optimum performance for this system that we're trying to develop. So really for us, the key was just being better at what we were doing, tweaking our system, improving our grass and our soils, and getting the stock right. And we've found that that's really went hand in hand with lowering our footprint, which has been great.
How do you go about buying less feed? Presumably you have to feed the beast something.
For us, it was a real mindset change. We started, we sort of opened our eyes and realised that grass was the best thing we could feed our stock year round. Our first step into rotational grazing and managing pastures a bit better was to defer some grass in the autumn. So we'll shut off maybe 25-30 hectares of grazing ground in August, and we won't go back onto that until January or February, by which point we've got still got a really nice lush field of grass, which is quite unusual to have at that time of year, and we can paddock graze that with ewes at that time of year. We had that grass analysed for our own interest, and we found the protein levels and energy levels in that grass were far better than anything we could buy in a bag. So that was really the light bulb moment that we realised, look, we can do this with minimal concentrate feeding bought in, and we've sort of developed the system from there into a rotational grazing system and utilising deferred grass and forage crops through the winter. I would say that we're not 100% against buying in concentrates and using fertiliser when needed, but we very much now use it in a targeted manner, so that we'll target it at certain times of year when we can see it'll help us to build our grass wedge, and we can see a definite return from it. So although we still do use some bought-in feed and fertiliser, it's very targeted, and we know we're getting a return out of that, which sort of maximises what we're doing from the grass and forage.
And all this information, all this data, allowed you to reduce your carbon footprint on Chlonhie by how much?
Well, over the 3-year period, we managed to reduce our carbon footprint by about a third, which we were really pleased with, and I was surprised by just how much we'd managed to reduce it. And that was really by increasing our output per hectare. And that's what really drove that, whilst, you know, maintaining a low cost base which was our variable costs of our feeding and fertiliser inputs.
Being able to say to consumers, and to processors and to supermarkets, look, we have reduced our carbon footprint by a third, does that give you any sort of commercial edge, any sort of advantage?
It probably isn't making a huge amount of difference, but for us, we're looking at the long-term picture, and for me, it's going to be very important going forward. Being able to reduce that carbon footprint, along with what we're doing with the biodiversity on the farm, I think is going to play a bigger and bigger role as we go forward.
And John, these sustainable red meat action groups, how much of this is about metrics, about measuring stuff, knowing what your inputs are, what your outputs are, being able to demonstrate that you're doing your level best not to damage the planet?
Benchmarking carbon auditing will be fundamental to the groups, but the idea of your benchmarking and your carbon audit exercise is to really show what opportunities and what strengths and weaknesses the farmers have within their businesses. And from there, we can then choose areas to focus on to improve. The style of benchmarking we're looking to do is more physical. So the things that Andrew's been talking about, so livestock production, your kilograms per hectare, your grass production, the kilograms of concentrate feed that you're buying to use, the kilograms of soya you're feeding, the kilograms of fertilizer you're applying to your land, the fuel use, and then also your carbon produced. So the idea is it's more physical things that farmers can really relate to, and they can see a difference, not just on their bottom line, but they can see day to day how much grass they're growing and how much fertilizer they're using.
From your previous experience, Andrew, as being one of these monitor farms, would you recommend this to other farmers?
Yeah, 100%. I spoke to 2 or 3 previous monitor farmers before we applied to be a monitor farm, and everybody told me what a fantastic opportunity it was, and I can 100% agree with them now. When we start and reflect on what we've achieved. I mean, it's not an easy process. You have to put a lot in if you're going to get much out of it, which I think is the same with most things in life. But what we've gained over the 3 years has been fantastic. We've been very lucky to have such great people support our monitor farm. We've had great speakers, facilitators, and the people that have been a part of the community group and came and got involved has been tremendous. And I think really the results of what we've achieved are still to come. Although we're at the end of the 3 years, I think in another 2 years' time we'll be really starting to reap the rewards of what we've been doing over the past 3 years.
And John, if anybody's listening to this, farmers, and they're interested in finding out more or in joining one of these 7 groups around Scotland, how do they go about it?
The easiest way is to log on to the QMS website, and you can register there. Register your interest. There's a survey to fill in to give us a few more details about your business, and then we'll contact you after that.
Perfect. Listen, John Evans and Andrew Marchant, it's been a pleasure speaking to you both. Thank you both very much for your time.
No worries. No, thanks, Mark. That was great.
Thank you, Andrew.
No worries at all. It'll be good to meet you sometime, John, and get a catch up.
One day when we're allowed to leave our farms.
Speak to you again soon, guys. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much again. This has been a QMS podcast. I'm Mark Stephen. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Quality Meat Scotland podcast. For news and to listen back to previous episodes of the podcast, visit qmscotland.co.uk. For Scotch beef, Scotch lamb and specially selected pork recipe videos and inspiration, visit www.scotchkitchen.com or follow Scotch Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter.